Hi everyone, and welcome to Windrider Farm. In today's video, I'd like to take you inside the pepper greenhouse here at the farm and give you an update on how our pepper experiment is progressing. I'd also like to show you the type of fertilizers we've been using throughout this experiment. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, what we've decided to do this year is a little experiment on how many pepper plants we could grow in 5-gallon buckets. What we have here is 140 pepper plants in 70 buckets. Because they're in buckets, we can control the amount of fertilizer and water they receive a lot easier than if they were in the ground. For those of you who watched our first video, what you'll notice is how much growth these pepper plants have put out in just the 13 days since the last video. What I'd like to show you today is all of the fertilizers we've been using to be able to attain this level of growth. Some of these pepper plants that you see were started from seed, and when they were still in the young seedling stage, I used a worm compost tea. I had never used this brand before and purchased it at my local Tractor Supply, but so far I've been very happy with the results. When pepper plants are very small, you only want to use something like a worm casting tea or a fish emulsion. If you are going to use another fertilizer, you need to dilute it, because these young pepper plants are very small and their needs are not great in that stage of development. But when the pepper plants start to get bigger, about the size they were when I purchased the other ones from a large nursery, you'll want to change the type of fertilizer you use. The type of fertilizer that you want to use before they start to develop buds and set fruit is a fertilizer that's high in nitrogen. You want them to become bushy and develop a strong stem so they'll be able to support the weight of the fruit that follows without breaking. Once these pepper plants started to develop buds and flowers, I needed to change the type of fertilizer I was using. At that point, I needed to stop using such a high nitrogen fertilizer, and I needed to use one with a higher percentage of phosphorus. Phosphorus is responsible for the formation of buds and flowers, and subsequently fruit. So as you can see, by adding a fertilizer that was higher in phosphate, my pepper plants started to put out more buds and develop more flowers. But we didn't stop the adjustments then. We started out with the worm casting tea. We then went to a fertilizer that was high in nitrogen to get these pepper plants a little more stocky with bigger stems and more leaves. Then we switched again to a fertilizer lower in nitrogen that had more phosphorus and more potassium. But we didn't stop the adjustments there. Now we're using another fertilizer, and this is the fertilizer we're going to be using until the end of the season. Now what we're going to be using for the rest of the season is another Miracle-Gro Performance Organics, but the ratio of NPK on this one is 7, 6, and 9. So you can see we've reduced the nitrogen even more. Now some of you may be wondering if you have to use these particular brands to be as successful with your growing as we have been, and the answer is no. We've chosen to use organic products because that's just the way that we grow things here on the farm. The reason why we're using the Miracle-Gro Performance Organics is because they're readily available at any large garden center. But you certainly can use anything else. You just have to keep in mind when you should be using more nitrogen and when you should switch over to a fertilizer that's higher in phosphate and potassium. So figuring out what type of fertilizer to use on your peppers is not difficult if you just understand what the pepper plant's needs are throughout their growth. I hope you found this video to be helpful, and we'll be posting more videos throughout the season to show you the progress we're making with our pepper experiment.